everyone, and welcome back. I'm Rick Fussell and this is the Ingrain Workshop. In today's video, we're going to be picking up where we left off at part 1 in our miter saw station build. Now during part 1, we built our toe kicks and we built our cabinet carcasses. In today's video, we're going to be building our drawer boxes, our drawer fronts, and our door fronts, and then we're going to be installing those onto our cabinet carcasses, and then we're going to install our toe kicks and our cabinets to the walls of our workshop. That's coming up next here at the Ingrain Workshop. So I'm going to start with my 15-inch base cabinet, which is going to be full of drawers. I'm going to install 5 drawers in this cabinet. These drawers are going to be overlay drawers, and they're going to have a 1/8 inch reveal all the way around the drawer front. So the first thing we need to do is figure out the drawer front size. And we're going to start with the cabinet height at 34 inches, and then we're going to subtract out an 1/8 inch for a reveal at the top and the bottom of the cabinet, and then an 1/8 inch reveal between each drawer front. That's going to leave us a total drawer front space of 33 1/8 inches, and then I'm going to divide that by 5 drawers, and that's going to give me a drawer height of 6 5/8 inches. Now for the drawer front widths, since our base cabinet has an overall width of 15 inches, we're just going to subtract an 1/8 inch reveal on each side, which is a 1/4 inch. So we're going to make our drawer front widths 14 3/4 inches. Next, I'm going to start working on the drawer boxes. I'm going to be using 1/2 inch plywood for the drawer box construction. Now, a typical rule of thumb is to make your drawer box height about 1 inch to 2 inches less than your drawer front height. So I've decided to make mine 1 1/8 inches less than the drawer front height. So I'm ripping all of these down at 5 3/8 of an inch. Next, I'm going to jump over here to the miter saw and just rough cut my drawer box sides and fronts. As you've probably picked up from the part 1 video, I don't like doing the final cuts at the miter saw. I like to do all my final cuts over at the table saw. So once we're done cutting the rough dimensions, we're going to jump over to the table saw. So using my crosscut sled, the first thing I'm going to do is cut what I call a factory edge on one end of the board. That way I know that that end is straight and square. And then I'll put a little F on that edge of the board. And then I'm going to go through and rip all the sides for the drawer boxes. I believe there's a total of 20 sides because I have a total of 10 drawers. So that's 2 sides per drawer. So there's a total of 20 that I'm going to have to cut. So the depth of my cabinets are 24 inches, and I'm using 22-inch long drawer slides. So I'm going to set my fence up here at 23 inches and then put a 1-inch spacer block between my fence. That'll give me a positive reference point to go ahead and cut these sides at a finished length of 22 inches. Now I'm going to repeat the process for the drawer box fronts and backs. In order to find that dimension, I took the inside dimension of the cabinet, which is 13 1/2 inches, less 1 inches for the drawer slides, less 1 inch for the thickness of the drawer sides, left me a final length of 11 1/2 inches. Then lo and behold, while I'm diligently working, I get a surprise visit from who else? The supervisor, who proceeded to instruct me that my workshop was too cold in the middle of summer in Central Florida. That's a nice plug for my metal building installation video and my DIY Mr. Cool installation video. You can check those out in my playlist. So I could blame this next part on the disruption from the supervisor, but actually it's probably my own stupidity. When calculating the door fronts and backs, I was thinking in my head that I was using 3/4 inch material instead of 1/2 inch. So as I'm cutting all these, I'm literally cutting them a 1/2 inch short, which means later in the video, I'm going to have to add a 1/4 inch spacer for my drawer slides. So with my fence set at a 1/2 inch and my blade depth at 1/4 inch, I'm going to now start cutting the drawer box sides and fronts and backs with a 1/4 inch dado for the bottom of the drawers. Since I'm not using a dado stack here, I'm going to run both the sides, fronts, and backs through with one pass. Once I get the first initial cut in, then I'm going to take a piece of scrap wood, bump the fence out a little bit, and really dial it in, and then test the fit on a piece of scrap 1/4 inch plywood that I'm using for the bottoms. Once I get that fit dialed in, then I'll cut all my other pieces with the second pass. Now it's time to rip the 1/4 inch plywood for the drawer bottoms. So since my drawer fronts and backs are cut at 11 inches, I'm going to add a 1/2 inch, that's a 1/4 inch for each side that will fit inside the dados. So I'm going to rip these down to 11.5 inches. I'm going to jump over to the miter saw and just rough cut the lengths of the drawer bottoms. Then I'm going to bounce back over to my table saw and using my crosscut sled, I'm going to cut the drawer bottoms to their final length. Just as before, I'm going to cut a factory edge on one side. My drawer bottoms need to be cut at a final length of 21.5 inches. So I've set my table saw fence up at 22.5 inches. And then using a 1-inch spacer block just as a positive reference point, that'll get me to the 21.5 inches that my drawer bottoms need to be cut. So with all my drawer box components complete now, I can start the dreadful task of sanding everything down. I'm just going to sand everything down to 180 grit before I take and assemble the drawer boxes. So with everything finally sanded down, I'm going to use 1.25 inch brads to assemble the drawer boxes. I'm just going to dry fit everything. As you can see, everything fits snug together. And then I'm going to just take a little glue and just apply a little glue to the fronts and backs and then shoot some brads in just to act as fasteners. Now, because I'm shooting these brads into the sides of the cabinets, and that's how I'm hooking the front and backs in, the brads are going to be perpendicular to the direction of the drawer pull, so it's going to make for a very sturdy connection. Now, another method you could use would be pocket holes and pocket hole screws. This being 1/2 inch plywood, you would definitely have to use a 1-inch pocket hole screws. Now, if you were using 3/4 inch material, you could use your standard, 1.25 inch pocket hole screws. But I think the brad nails, the 1.25 inch brad nails, are more than sufficient to lock these drawer boxes in place. Also note the direction that I'm shooting these brads in with the brad gun. I've got the brad gun perpendicular to the sides. That way, if I have a brad that shoots out, it's not going to shoot out through the front or the back of the drawer box. Next, I like to install the drawer slide portion to the drawer box. Now note that there's a horizontal slot, a vertical slot, and then just a round slot. So that allows you to have a horizontal adjustment, a vertical adjustment, or a fixed adjustment. So when installing these to the box, I like to do it on a flat surface and just lay the drawer slide flat on that surface and then mount the actual slide flush to the front of the drawer box. For my first screw, I like to use the horizontal slot. That way, if I do have to make an adjustment, I've got that ability to make an adjustment to make sure that the slide is flush with the front of the drawer box. And then the 2 subsequent screws, I just use the fixed location, the actual just round location, to lock the actual slide to the drawer box. To access your third and final screw, you'll have to push down on this lever here, and that will remove the actual cabinet side of the slide off of the drawer side of the slide, giving you access to the third and final screw location, which again, I'll mount at the fixed location. So for determining the location of your drawer slides within the cabinet itself, you have to start at the bottom and work your way up. So my bottom drawer is going to be 1/4 inch off the bottom of the cabinet. So that location is 1/4 inch. For your second drawer location, you're going to have to add the drawer height, which in my case was 6 5/8 inches, plus 1/4 inch, leaves me with 6 7/8 of an inch, and that's going to be the location of my second drawer slide. And then I'm just going to work my way up, adding the drawer height plus 1/4 of an inch all the way up the top of the cabinet. To make it easier to install the cabinet drawer slides, it's easier to flip the carcass on its side and let gravity give you an assist. And then you kind of have to work backwards. You have to start at the top, or at least I like to start at the top, cut me a spacer block at the 5th drawer location, which is at 26 3/4 inches. So with the assist of gravity and my spacer block, the cabinet slide, I'm going to push back about 1/16 of an inch. So I'm just going to use the spacer block just to keep it about 1/16 of an inch from the front of the cabinet. These, and this is a warning, these are self-closing drawer slides. So if you've got a supervisor that doesn't have self-closed drawer slides in their kitchen, this could present a problem, so you definitely need to keep it on the down low. Fortunately enough for me, I don't think the supervisor's watching this video because I know for a fact we don't have self-closed drawer slides in our kitchen. So similarly to the slide that we mounted on the drawer box, the slide here on the cabinet box is going to have a horizontal slot for the first screw, and again I'm going to utilize that to give me some flexibility if I need to make an adjustment. And then the last 2 screws are going to be in fixed locations. Next I'm going to flip the carcass over to the other side and repeat the process. And you can see here, this is my 1/4 inch spacer that I needed because of my faux pas earlier when I cut the width of the drawer boxes at 11 inches instead of 11.5, thinking I was using 3/4 inch drawer box material instead of 1/2 inch. But, you know, that's a workaround, not a problem. I'll just have to do this for all the drawer slides. So the pro tip for starting at the top is that you can just keep cutting your spacer down all the way down till you get to the very bottom drawer. Then you should be left with just some easy soft closed drawers that the supervisor would be envy of. With the drawer boxes out of the way, I can now focus my attention on the trim for the door fronts and the drawer fronts. So I've got some Radidia pine here, and I'm just going to take and rough cut the lengths and widths for my rails and stiles. And then I'm going to take them back over to the table saw and cut them down to their final lengths and widths. So there's really no hard rule for the size of your, the widths of your rails and stiles. I'm using 2 inch, so I've got my miter saw fence set up here at 2 inches. And I'm just going to rip everything down to 2 inches. So now with everything cut down to 2 inches, it's time to bust out the crosscut sled again and cut down our stiles and rails. For the drawers, the stiles are going to be 6 5/8. And the rails are going to be 10 3/4. For the doors, the stiles are going to be 33 3/4, and the rails are 10 3/4. Next, I'm going to drill pocket holes on both ends of the rails, and this is how I'm going to fasten the rails and stiles together that will make up the drawer fronts and the door fronts. Next, I'm just going to use a little glue on the ends of the rails, and then clamping it down to my assembly table, I'm just going to pop in some pocket hole screws. And this is how I'm going to fasten the stiles to the rails. So now we're going to move over to my router table here, and I've got a 1/2 inch rabbeting bit chucked up in the router, and I'm just going to take and cut a rabbet around the inside of the drawer front. And this is so our 1/2 inch plywood panel will slide and fit inside the drawer front. With the 1/2 inch rabbet cut in the drawer front of the stiles and rails, I'm now going to take and cut out the drawer panels out of 1/2 inch plywood. So here at the table saw, I'm just going to go ahead and rip them down to 3 5/8 of an inch. And then as soon as I get the width cut down and make sure I've got a nice snug fit, I'm going to take and cut the lengths out with my crosscut sled. Now the 1/2 inch rabbet that we cut in our drawer fronts leaves rounded corners. So as soon as I get the drawer panels cut out here, I am going to take them over to my bandsaw and just round the corners over so they'll fit inside the drawer fronts. Once I cut the rounded corners on the drawer panels, I will take these over to my pocket hole jig and drill probably about 4 pocket holes in each panel, and this is how I'll fasten the panels to the actual drawer fronts. With all the drawer front components and the door components now cut out, complete, and assembled, I'll take and go ahead and sand them down to a final grit of 180 prior to staining all the components. So I'm going to be using a Minwax Golden Pecan stain, and I'm going to use this for the drawer front panels. This is the same stain that I used on the T111 siding inside my workshop, so it will match that. I'm also going to stain the exposed carcass sides. I believe I've got two 15-inch cabinets and then one 30-inch cabinet that's going to have an exposed side to the cabinet, and I'll stain those with this Golden Pecan stain as well. And keeping with the workshop theme, the trim that I have inside the workshop I've stained with a combination of Special Walnut and Early American. So I'm going to do the same thing with this miter saw station. I'm going to take and stain all the drawer trim and the door trim with the 50-50 mix of Early American and Special Walnut. With the staining done, now I'll take and run just a thin layer of glue down in the 1/2-inch rabbet on the drawer front, and then I'll place the drawer front panel inside the opening, and then I'll use some 1-inch pocket screws to fasten the drawer panel to the drawer front. Next, I'm going to lay out the location for my door hinges. So I'm going to take and just measure down 2 inches from the top of the door frame and then 2 inches up from the bottom of the door frame. And then Liberty hinges is what I'm using, and they come with this little template with a punch, and I'm just going to locate the center for my 35 millimeter hole for the drawer hinge to go in, and then the 2 mounting screw locations. Now with my 35 millimeter Forstner bit chucked up in my drill press, I'm going to bring my door frames over to the drill press and go ahead and drill out the holes for the hinges. And I did use a piece of scrap wood to go ahead and drill one hole out to adjust my depth stop on the drill press to make sure that I'm drilling the hole at the right depth. Next, we're going to install the door panels within the door frames. Now, to keep with the rustic theme of the workshop, I chose to go with rusted corrugated metal. And the process to rust this metal is to basically clean the corrugated metal first with muriatic acid, and then use a mixture of 26 ounces of hydrogen peroxide, 2 tablespoons of salt, 1 tablespoon of vinegar, and then 1 cup of copper sulfide or root killer. And once you clean it, the metal with the muriatic acid, you spray that mix on the metal, and it basically rusts it instantly. And I did a short last week, and you can look on my playlist and play that short, which kind of goes over the whole rusting process. And then you just let it sit for 24 hours, and this is the end product after about 24 hours. I really like the way it came out, and this is what I'm going to be using for my door panels. So to cut them down to size, I'm just going to use some 10 snips to cut them down to the proper length and width, and then I'm going to use 5/8 inch wood screws, and then I'm going to pre-drill through the corrugated metal and then drill them to the back of the door frames. If you're using concealed hinges like I am here, you will have to go back and just cut out around the hinge location. That way you can always come back and install the hinges. Now, if you're using surface mounted hinges, that's not an issue here. But since I am using concealed hinges, you can see here I am going to go back and just cut out around the hinges. And as you can see here, it makes for a nice looking door, at least I think, for, if you're going with a rustic theme. I think this really is a nice feature. So once I level the concealed hinges onto the door frame, I'm just going to use a self-centering bit to just drill out the pilot holes for the hinges and then go back and install the 5/8 inch hinge screws to fasten the hinges to the door frame. So as far as the drawer hardware and the door hardware goes, I decided to just make my own. So what I'm doing here is I've got my table saw blades set up at 15 degrees, and I'm just going to take some of the door trim material that I had left over, and I'm going to run it through on one side at 15 degrees and then flip it over and cut the opposite side at 15 degrees, which will give me that 15-degree bevel on both sides, and that's what I'm going to use for my door handle and my drawer handles. So with the angles cut on my door handles and drawer handles, I'm going to come over here to my crosscut sled with my stop block set at 5 inches, and I'm just going to rip these all down to 5 inches so they'll be consistent on both the drawers and the doors. So it's that sentimental time in the video where I have to bid farewell to my existing miter saw station, and it served me for many years, close to 20 years. So, you know, I hate to see it go, but at the same time, I'm happy that I've got a new one to replace it. So it's time to say, you know, out with the old and in with the new. So one of the biggest pros for not integrating your toe kick into your cabinet carcasses is to be able to level the toe kick. And you can see here I've leveled in both plane directions, and you know, I've just shimmed everything up, got everything level. It's very easy. All you're dealing with is the toe kick and not the entire cabinet. And then the whole row of cabinets I can level at one time, and then I can also level across where the miter saw is going to be to the other side of the cabinet, just to ensure that the entire miter saw station is going to be level. And I can't emphasize as much that, you know, this is just the easiest way to install cabinets. And I don't think I'm ever going to go back to building cabinets with integrated toe kicks. So with my toe kicks now level, I've taken and marked on the foundation the perimeter outline of the toe kicks, just to ensure that they don't move anywhere. And then you could leave the shims and just cut them off and you know, somehow use some sort of adhesive to keep them in place. But I find it just much easier to take some scrap plywood and screw with just some pocket hole screws to the inside of your toe kicks. And once you get the scrap plywood screwed onto the inside, then you can come back and remove your shims, and you don't have to worry about it after that. And I think it makes for a sturdier cabinet. So now I can start putting the cabinets in place. I'm going to start on the right side of the miter saw station. I've got a 30-inch cabinet, and then I've got a 15-inch cabinet on the right side, and then on the left side I have a 15-inch cabinet and then two 30-inch cabinets. And you can see the sides of the 15-inch cabinet and the one 30-inch cabinet are exposed, and I've stained those sides, and then all the other sides would just be butted up next to other cabinets, so I didn't have to worry about that. So when I renovated my workshop and installed the T111 siding in this metal building, I went ahead and put blocking at 36 inches all the way around the workshop so I could do projects like this. And this is how I'm fastening the cabinets to the walls. I'm just popping a couple of screws into the back of the cabinets, directly into the blocking, and then I'm going to clamp the cabinets together, make sure everything's flush. As far as level goes, you don't have to worry about it at this point because you've already done that with the toe kicks. And then I'm going to screw the cabinets together on the 15-inch cabinet side, since that cabinet is just a bank of drawers and you won't see the screws. And then, like I said, I'll pop a couple of screws into the back of the cabinets, into the blocking, just to hold those to the wall. And lastly, I'm going to fasten the cabinets to the toe kicks. Earlier in the video when we made the toe kicks, I put these nailers across the toe kicks so I'd have something to screw to. I don't think this is really needed because I think once the cabinets are fastened to the walls, the weight of the cabinets, I don't think your toe kick is going to go anywhere. But I did go ahead and put a couple screws into the bottom of the cabinets through to the toe kicks. I need to prepare my handles so I can install them on the drawers and the doors. So I'm just going to locate the center of the actual handles, and then using it's a knockoff true positioning jig that I got off of Amazon, and I'll leave a link in the video description below. I'm going to lay out the two holes, the two hole locations that I'm going to use, and then pre-drill those out. And then once I install the cabinets, then I can take some pocket hole screws and screw the handles to the actual door fronts. So once you have your jig set up to where you want to install your handles, then you can just put the jig up to the top and the side of the door frame, and then just using a punch, I'm going to just punch out the two hole locations and then go ahead and drill all the way through the door frame, and then place the handle on the exterior of the door, and then just using pocket hole screws, I'll screw from the back side of the door frame to fasten the handle to the actual door frame. So with my handles on my doors, it's now ready to install the doors. So I've made a little jig here, which is just a scrap piece of plywood with an 1/8 inch spacer just glued to the plywood. Because that's going to give me the 1/8 inch reveal that I need at the bottom of the cabinet. And then just using some double-sided tape, I just stuck it to the bottom of the cabinet, and I'll rest the door on top of this. And by doing that, that'll give me the 1/8 inch reveal that I need, and we'll put the door in the exact location that it needs to be. And then I'll just shoot a screw into the top hinge and then into the bottom hinge. Then I can remove the jig and put in the two other remaining screws into the cabinet hinge side. And then once I get both doors on, then I can do the fine adjustment to the hinges just to make sure everything's aligned correctly. With all the doors installed, I can now drop back to the drawer fronts. So once I find the center location in both directions for the drawer fronts, I can go ahead and set up my jig. And then using a punch, I'm just going to punch out the hole locations in the drawer panel. And then I can just go ahead and drill through the drawer panel. And this is where I'm going to use pocket hole screws to screw the handles to the actual drawer fronts. But I'm also going to use these holes to actually fasten the drawer front to the drawer boxes. And I find that's the easiest way to install the drawer fronts to the actual drawer boxes. So just like I did with the doors, I'm going to take my scrap plywood with my 1/8 inch spacer glued to it, and then using double-sided tape, I'm just going to fasten this to the bottom of my 15 inch drawer cabinets. This way I can sit my drawer front directly on top, and since I've got the 1/8 inch spacer already on there, it's going to give me the 1/8 inch reveal. I've also cut two other 1/8 inch spacers just to put on the sides of the drawer front. So I've got an 1/8 inch reveal on all four sides of the drawer front. And then using the handle holes that we pre-drilled earlier, I'm just going to run some pocket hole screws through there to fasten the drawer front to the actual drawer box. Once I get the drawer fronts fastened to the drawer box, then I'm going to place an 1/8 inch spacer on top of the drawer front and then just work my way up installing each drawer. I think I've got a total of 5 drawers in this 15 inch cabinet. So again, I'm just starting here at the bottom, and then I'm going to just work my way up and get all the drawer fronts installed to the drawer boxes. Now with the drawer fronts installed onto the drawer boxes, I can pull out the drawers and then just screw some pocket holes from the back side of the drawer into the actual door front. And again, I'm just going to use some 1 inch pocket hole screws here If you use 1 1/4 inch, you're probably going to drill right through your door frame. So I definitely wanted to make sure I used 1-inch screws instead of 1 1/4 inch. And then I'm going to take the 1 1/4 inch screws out of the door handle holes, and then go ahead and using the same 1 1/4 inch screws, use those to fasten the actual drawer handle to the drawer front. So, looking at the outcome, I'm really happy with, the look, the design. I'm also very happy that I am swapping out my miter saw. So this cabinet is sitting flush against the wall. I'm getting rid of my DeWalt, and I will be installing a new Bosch miter saw on this miter saw station. So I think it's going to give me a lot more storage space. I like the drawer capacity. I think this definitely outdoes my old miter saw station, and I think I'm going to be very happy with it. And like I said, I'm more than pleased with the outcome and how it looks. And for the next one, we'll go ahead and install the miter saw top, and then the tops for both the left and right sides of the cabinets. And then I'm also going to be installing some middle row cabinets and then some wall cabinets to go along this back wall. So there are a lot of other projects that are going to be built into this miter saw station build. So I hope everyone stays tuned for that. Well, that's going to wrap up this video. I hope this video gives you some ideas on how you can build your own miter saw station. I'll leave links in the video description below to where you can pick up all the tools and equipment that I used in this build. And also stay tuned for part 3 of this series, where we're going to go ahead and finish up the miter saw top. Again, if you're new to the channel and you like DIY and woodworking projects, then I highly recommend that you hit that subscribe button. It's free and painless. And I'd also ask that you click on that bell icon. That way you'll be notified of all our upcoming videos. To all my existing subscribers, I really appreciate all the support that you've given this channel. Again, I'm Rick with the Ingrain Workshop. Until next time, have a wonderful day and God bless.